everyone, and welcome to SHU CAP's Building Resiliency Series. My name is Dr. Julie DiMatteo, and I am a staff psychologist at CAPS. For those of you that are not familiar with our department, CAPS, or Counseling and Psychological Services, provides year-round counseling, crisis intervention, consultation, and referral services to the SHU community. Our mission is to foster the psychological health and well-being of our students in order to enable them to thrive, develop, and achieve academic success. I encourage you to check out our website, www.shu.edu/CAPS, for more information and helpful resources. This is the third video in our three-part series discussing the concept of resiliency. It is our goal that through this series, you learn skills to facilitate your success in college and beyond, as well as learn of the resources available to you in times of adversity and stress. Our first video defined resiliency and the skills needed to build and maintain resiliency. In our second video, we highlighted ways to connect with others to build resiliency and reduce loneliness. Finally, in this video, we discuss skills needed to be resilient when navigating adverse situations in life. At the end of this video, we will provide resources related to coping with adverse situations and the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as how to contact CAPS if you feel that additional support is needed. While we generally discuss adverse situations in this video, these skills are designed to help you cope with stressors associated with the current pandemic. I look forward to presenting this information to you and hope it provides information to support you in this universally challenging time. There are a lot of myths we hear about resiliency, as well as what outcomes look like for individuals who face adverse situations and stressors. Our goals today are to educate you about common reactions and outcomes when facing adversity, to teach you skills to facilitate a resilient outcome when facing adversity, and to connect you with additional resources and information that can provide support. First, let's look at a range of reactions individuals have when faced with an adverse experience. Keep in mind that some individuals do not experience any major changes following an adverse event, and that these are not universal reactions. Individuals are more likely to experience some changes like those on the left side of our list, such as changes in mood, sleep, appetite, energy, and motivation immediately following the event. Often, these changes go away within a few days to a few weeks. Individuals may also experience changes such as somatic discomfort, social avoidance or withdrawal, difficulty making decisions, being more easily startled or on edge, grief, and attempts to control situations and others around them. If these changes persist for more than a month, it would be helpful to seek outside support from CAPS or another therapeutic provider. Finally, a very small number of individuals experience major changes in their ability to fulfill their responsibilities and can even see an increase in risky behaviors such as increased substance use, self-harm, or suicidal ideation. It is important to reach out for immediate support if there are any concerns about the well-being and safety of yourself or others following an adverse event. One of the major myths we hear is that if someone experiences an adverse situation, they automatically go on to develop mental health difficulties. From research, we know that 70% of adults in the United States experience at least one traumatic event in their life. 80% of these individuals experience either no major changes or what we call a normal stress response. That's changes aligned with the left side of our previous slide. Other individuals will go on to have an acute stress response, meaning that they experience changes for about a month after experiencing the event, but that these changes remit and they're able to maintain their previous functioning. A small percentage of individuals go on to develop PTSD. As explained by the American Psychiatric Association, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a psychiatric disorder that can occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event. People with PTSD have intense, disturbing thoughts and feelings related to their experience that last long after the traumatic event has ended. They may relive the event through flashbacks or nightmares, they may feel sadness, fear, or anger, and they may feel detached or estranged from other people. People with PTSD may avoid situations or people that remind them of the traumatic event, and they may have strong negative reactions to something as ordinary as a loud noise or an accidental touch. For individuals who do experience PTSD, there are evidence-based treatments to help alleviate symptoms and allow the individual to resume and engage in their normal life and routines. If you or someone you know is experiencing symptoms of PTSD, support can be found through CAPS for SHU students and from community therapy services for those not enrolled at the university. The Sidran Institute provides a hotline to help you connect with a provider, as well as helpful resources on trauma. Their information can be found at the end of this video. It's important to emphasize that the most common outcome is resiliency. Practicing the skills we've discussed in the previous two videos and seeking support when experiencing adverse event are two of the best things we can do to increase the likelihood of a resilient outcome when facing adverse situations. When facing an adverse situation, there are certain practices we know you can engage in following the event to optimize your mood and health. These practices include imposing structure and maintaining routines. It's important to engage in your everyday life. This provides both support and stability as you navigate the changes you experience following the event. Continue to seek opportunities for enjoyment and mastery. As we discussed in our first video, regularly scheduling and engaging in activities that bring a sense of joy and competency creates an undoing effect on negative emotions we experience. Following an adverse event, we may find that our motivation to engage in such activities may be lower, or we may even feel guilt for doing so. It's important that we continue to engage in these pleasant activities anyway to help offset the impact of these events and to maintain a healthy path. While grief is normal, it's important that we find ways to process that grief through counseling or other supports while continuing to move forward in our lives. We want to make sure that our daily activities stay aligned with our values and goals. As discussed in our first video, values and goals create a compass to guide us and provide a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives. When facing adversity, values and goals become important for anchoring us and pointing us towards resiliency. Next, we need to seek opportunities to connect to others. As discussed at the beginning of this video, one may experience wants to avoid social interaction and feelings of isolation following an adverse event. Maintaining social contact becomes critical to our well-being. This can mean spending time with friends and family, and it can also mean just seeking opportunities to be around others, even if we're not engaging, to offset feelings of loneliness and isolation. Remember, face-to-face interaction is the best for decreasing feelings of loneliness and isolation, and for increasing our social supports. Therefore, we need to also remember to set limits with screen time and media consumption. As we discussed in our second video, social media can increase low mood and feelings of social isolation. Additionally, increased media consumption, especially in the current pandemic, is linked to decreased mood and increased stress. This does not mean ignore the media, but rather designate a time of your day and a brief period, maybe 15 to 30 minutes, to read the news. When doing so, try to read nonpartisan, unbiased news sources like Reuters and the Associated Press that provide a factual rather than interpretive presentation of the news. This ensures that you're getting the facts and reducing the emotional content that can further low mood and negative emotions. Finally, maintain hope and practice gratitude. We'll discuss more about practicing gratitude in a bit, but trying to find areas where we can maintain optimism and hope is important. Sometimes this means focusing not directly on the adverse situation we experienced, but rather on the areas of stability in our life or our long-term goals that we can have control over. It's important here to redirect our efforts to what we can control and try to let go of what we can't. Often when we say to let go, there's a reaction assuming we mean to ignore or deny what is going on. This is definitely not the case. Instead, we say to let go is not to deny, but to accept. Now, acceptance often gets a bad rap because we often feel invalidated when someone says just accept what is going on, like our feelings don't matter or that it's easy to do. Rather, acceptance is when we stop fighting reality and we let go of bitterness. Defined by Steve Hayes, acceptance involves the active and aware embrace of those private events occasioned by one's history without unnecessary attempts to change. Therefore, acceptance really means accepting all the facts of the situation, even the ones we don't like. This does not mean that we have to agree, condone, or approve of these facts and situation. However, it does mean that we've exhausted other options for coping, and fighting the reality of the situation is causing us more harm, stress, and difficulty. It's important to remember that rejecting reality does not change the reality of the situation. The situation is what it is, and the more we fight reality, the more we further our pain. We can't change reality if we don't accept its presence. Accepting reality allows us to turn suffering we cannot cope with into pain that we can cope with. Refusing to accept reality can lead us to feel unhappy, bitter, angry, shameful, and other negative emotions. Whereas accepting reality provides us a pathway out of this suffering and provides us greater freedom in both choices and from our pain. An example of this would be the current pandemic. We obviously don't like that it's here, but if we don't acknowledge its presence and keep trying to do the things we always did, we're going to become frustrated and resentful that we can't maintain our normal life and routines. Also, we can't keep ourselves safe and cope ahead for how this might change aspects of our life if we don't acknowledge its presence. We don't have to like it to accept that it's here and that we have to cope with it. How do we practice acceptance? First, observe that you're fighting reality. A sign you're fighting reality is getting bogged down in what we call should statements. Statements like, it shouldn't be this way, or I should be able to do this instead. First, we need to recognize we're fighting reality to be able to accept it. Next, remind yourself that the unpleasant reality is just as it is, and it cannot be changed. Stick to the facts and remind yourself of the causes of what led up to the situation. Put context to the experience to help make sense of it. Practice accepting with the whole self, mind, body, and spirit. Use accepting self-talk and relaxation to help with your coping. Engage in behaviors you would if you already had accepted the situation. As we discussed before, stick to the routine and structure you had if you weren't fighting the reality of the situation. Attend to body sensations as you think about what you need to accept. Practice relaxation and other exercises to calm your body and mind. For more examples of relaxation, check out our Shoe Caps Cultivating Calm series found on our website. Allow disappointment, sadness, grief, and other emotions to be present. Often, we feel the need to push away the emotions because we don't think we can or don't know how to deal with them. This can actually make them stronger over time. Allow yourself to feel the emotions present. Finally, write a pros-cons list of accepting versus resisting reality if you're finding it hard to do so. Remember to distinguish what makes it in the short term and what is going to be present in the long term. Short term, it might feel easier to reject reality, whereas long term, you are creating greater suffering and pain for yourself. Ultimately, acceptance is a choice. We picture it like a fork in the road, and you can choose to go down the path of acceptance or the path of rejection. Walking down the path of rejection may feel good at first, but as we continue down it, we find increased bitterness, pain, and sadness. In contrast, choosing to go down the path of acceptance can be really hard at first, but as we continue, we find greater relief, freedom, and well-being. We don't just choose to go down this path once. We often have to make this choice several times before we feel real freedom and change. Often, despite wanting to accept reality, we find ourselves stuck in our own negative thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. One exercise we use to free ourselves from these chains are to practice willingness, which is another form of practicing acceptance. Willingness is participating fully in life by doing what is needed and acting with awareness. It is an openness to do what is effective in the situation rather than sticking to what we want to do despite it furthering our pain. Willingness is synonymous with doing what works. In contrast, willfulness is doing the opposite of what works or is effective. It is refusing to tolerate the moment, giving up, or trying to change a situation that can't be changed, or refusing to change a situation that needs to be. To practice willingness, we can be open to new experiences, we can use mindfulness to notice when we're acting counter to our goals, and we can use what's called a half smile and willing hands to change the mind-body connection. A half smile is when we relax our faces from the top of our head down to our chin by letting go of each facial muscle. We let go of each corners of our lips and we turn them slightly upwards just so you can feel a slight pull. It might not even be something others can see. A big forced smile, in contrast, can actually make us feel worse if it's not genuine. So this is something just to put ourselves in a more relaxed position. Our facial muscles communicate to our brains, and this can signal calm even when we may not be feeling that. Willing hands are when we unclench our hands, put them in a relaxed position to our sides or on our laps, relax our fingers, and turn our palms upwards. Remember, your body communicates to your brain, so placing your hands in a relaxed, open position signals willingness to our brains and an openness to take in what's coming at us. Let's take a moment to practice an acceptance exercise based in willingness. Pick a song that you find enjoyable and relaxing to use for this exercise. The key here is something that is relaxing to you. Once you've selected your song, position yourself into a comfortable but attentive position. Next, relax your facial muscles and slowly upturn the corners of your lips into that half smile we just discussed. Next, slowly move your arms to your sides with your hands either to your side or in your lap. Open your hands with palms facing upwards and take a deep cleansing inhale and exhale as we signal a willing position to our body. Plan to listen to your music selection for 2 or 3 minutes. Pay attention to the words, music, rhythm, and sentiments of the music you're listening to. Let your daydreams, thoughts, and distractions pass through without giving them attention. Half smile while watching your inhalations and exhalations and maintain a willing hands posture. In addition to acceptance, another skill that can facilitate a resilient outcome when facing adversity is gratitude. Unfortunately, a lot of our time is spent focusing on what we want or what we don't have, rather than focusing on what we do have and what is going well. Ultimately, this means that we can miss out on the goodness of our lives. Gratitude aligns with shifting our focus to the latter. Emmons and Stern, major researchers in the area of gratitude, state that feelings of gratitude are anchored in 2 essential pieces of information: an affirming of goodness or good things in our life, and the recognition that sources of this goodness lie at least partially outside ourselves. Therefore, when we discuss gratitude practice, we are discussing the acknowledgement of the good things in our life, both within ourselves and outside of us. Gratitude is similar to positive emotions, as it can have an undoing effect on negative emotions. Research tells us that practicing gratitude can improve both our mental and physical health, can increase our sense of connection and decrease feelings of loneliness, and improve overall well-being by reorienting us to something beneficial rather than focusing on the negatives. As discussed previously, gratitude can offset the negative feelings that arise from the problematic comparisons to others we make, especially when browsing social media. And gratitude can create a buffer against low mood. If nothing more, regular gratitude practice is linked to better sleep, and we can all certainly use more of that. Research also shows us that individuals who have a daily gratitude practice are more likely to have a resilient outcome when facing adversity, stress, or trauma. This occurs because individuals who practice gratitude are able to see the positive aspects of different domains of their lives and can keep better perspective when tough situations arise. Lastly, research also shows us that individuals around us see the benefits of our gratitude practice. Individuals who practice gratitude were rated to be more pleasant to be around and viewed as more helpful, optimistic, and trustworthy. Hence, gratitude practice also improves social connections and relationships. So how do we practice gratitude? Let's take a mindful moment to complete a gratitude exercise. Getting back into that comfortable, willing position we just discussed. Make sure your feet are flat on the ground, you're in a comfortable, attentive position, and use willing hands and a half smile here. Take out a blank sheet of paper and set a 2-minute timer. Take a deep cleansing breath, and when you begin, list everything that you're grateful for. If you're stuck, reflect on your current day, the past week, and in the different domains of your life, like family, friends, school, work, community, etc. If you continue to find this exercise challenging, finding it hard to move from negative events that have happened, try to see if there's a silver lining. Did you learn something about yourself or other people? What meaning can you make from the situation, and did it provide you an opportunity to grow? Gratitude is not always easy, especially at the beginning of this exercise. Try to only come up with 3 to 5 things, and if you can only come up with 1 or 2, that's okay too. When the timer ends, reflect on the content listed. What about these items makes you grateful? Have you always felt this way, or did it take time to develop over time? As discussed in our prior videos, accessing resources and knowing where to get accurate information is a skill critical to facilitating resiliency. The first two resources provide information about the university's response to the COVID pandemic, whereas the latter provide additional resources on managing your own mental health in response to this pandemic. Finally, here are additional resources that you can access on practicing radical acceptance, practicing gratitude, and finding healing and your life and meaning beyond trauma. I've also included the link to the Sidran Institute that we talked about before that has resources for both individuals who've survived trauma as well as for individuals whose loved ones have survived trauma. As always, if you find you're in need of additional support or resources, please call CAPS at 973-761-9500. Our standard office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:45 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. In the case of a psychological emergency after hours or on weekends, an on-call counselor can be reached by calling our main number at 973-761-9500. Finally, this is a list of the research that underlies the information presented to you today. Consider checking out these articles and books if you're interested in additional readings on resiliency.